Hello and welcome to another testimony from a parent who was my client previously for many, many years. Her son was diagnosed with ADHD and OHI, other health impairment. And we're going to talk about his history, his experience with school and the IEP, and then his huge success story about how he graduated high school and now is having a very successful life after high school. And as many of you parents know, the purpose of IDEA is to prepare children to leave high school with the skills they need to gain competitive employment or go on to continued education or a trade school and live independently. So that's the reason that IDEA is in existence, is to have children get a successful education so they could have a successful life after high school. And I think parents overlook that a lot because we're always so in the moment and focused on the problems we have now. What do we want to change in our IEP now? And what our child needs now? When if you look at the big picture, the overall picture, it's, what are their strengths? Let's build on those strengths. Let's make sure that we're working on goals so that, because the strengths are going to be, and their interests and their gifts, that's what's going to be their, if they go to high school, if they go to college or continued education, that's going to be what their major is, or the trade school they're going to is going to be in that strength, as well as their job. So it's really important to identify your child's strengths and have that in the back of your mind, even if your child's, in junior high or grade school. So welcome, Nicole. And thank you for doing this today with me. And so let's first talk about your son's history and how it all began.
Okay, so I had always, through my whole elementary and high school career, had gone to private schools. So I just thought, that was the best place for my kids to be. And so I had Noah in private schools, and he ended up getting kicked out. Not officially expelled. They just told me he was not a good fit for the culture in all three schools. And it was he was kindergarten, first grade. And that was due to just not being able to focus, not staying on task. He wasn't violent. He wasn't mean. It was nothing like that. He just was hyper. And I couldn't believe that they could just do that, and come to find out they can, because it's a private school. So I ended up putting him into the public school system in second grade, and they didn't kick him out, but they started suspending him. And I was at a very low point, because I felt that they just labeled him a bad kid, and that's all there was to it, And so I ended up speaking to one of my friends who is a client of Valerie's as well, and she referred me to Valerie for help. And it was like, just a light, because what happened the first meeting we have, I don't know if you remember, but just the fire and the passion that you had, because what they had done with Noah, they had him in the front of the class, facing the class. That's how his desk was. And when you found that out, it was like, no, that cannot happen, and I was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's how they deal with it. And I was in the dark. I didn't know.
No, that's total discrimination and setting your son apart from the rest of the class, and shining a bright flashlight on him, like, oh, look at this student, he's a bad kiddo, he has to face the class. So exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so wrong.
And it also turned into anything that would happen is his fault.
Yes. So the spotlight was on him. and they were
Exactly.
watching him. And in fact, I do believe that the first meeting that I went to was a manifestation determination, which is when kids are approaching 10 suspension days in a school year, they can expel that child. Now, a child on an IEP has safeguards in place under IDEA. And so, of course, I none of my clients have ever been expelled, because the manifestation question is, was the behavior that has caused this child to be suspended and up for a manifestation determination meeting, was that behavior a manifestation of their disability? And of course, those behaviors are a manifestation of their disability. That's question number one. Question number two is, was the IEP implemented properly? And no, it wasn't. In fact, he was being discriminated against, as Nicole just said. So there's lots of, and then I started digging in and finding all the stuff. So then I started developing the IEP to meet his needs. And it was really, his issues were with ADHD, were that he wanted attention. Because there's always the target behavior, and then what's the function of that behavior. And the function of his behaviors were attention. He just wanted attention. And remember, he used to do that when he was a little guy too, and with all the teachers.
Yes.
He wanted to be right next to the teacher, and the teacher's paying all the attention on him. And so whether it was negative attention or positive attention, you can't get positive, so you're going to get negative. So that was his deal. And he had a hard time following rules, following directions, getting his work done, staying on task, all those other things. And yes, they weren't those kind of behaviors that were really bad, like, not getting along with peers or getting in fights or anything like that. Even when he got older, they weren't bad behaviors like, drugs or anything like that, or fights or, really bad behavior. But it was always the inability to stay on task, inability to do his work, not following directions. He just was breaking the rules all the time.
Yeah, he was.
He just couldn't get it together. So what we did was, of course, I focused on the functional behavior assessment and a behavior intervention plan, because, you can have the best behavior intervention plan written in your kid's IEP. And if they're not doing it and implementing it, and if everybody doesn't understand how to provide positive behavior interventions, the child is never going to change their behavior. And positive behavior interventions look much different than punitive negative behavior interventions. Punitive is, you're going to get suspended. You're going to have detention. You don't get to go out to recess. You're going to miss lunch. You have to do the rest of your assignment at home. You're going to have a time, you're in grade school, how they have those green and cards, and you get your card moved down, or you don't earn a reward. That's negative. And positive is strategies that encourage the child, support the child, praise the child, give them a reward when they are doing things good, positive interventions. So when they finally started doing that, we saw it was slow going for a lot of years. We still had the problems. He still continued to get suspended. But then when he got a little older, and we saw, what we did was, I got him ERMS, educationally related mental health services. So for those of you that aren't in California, mental health services are called different things in different states. In California, it's called ERMS. And so I was able to obtain an ERMS counselor who was a psych who sees it. Sometimes they're not a psych, sometimes they're just a counselor, marriage and family counselor. Many times they can be a psych. And then he started going to her and meeting with her once a week. Now that ended up not being enough for him, which it's not enough for a lot of kiddos, because if the counselor isn't really good and know how to really counsel these kinds of kids, then they'll end up going, hey, how you doing today? And what's the kid going to say? Oh, I'm fine.
Fine,
What, do you
fine.
want to talk about anything? No, I'm good. Okay, well then you can go back to class. It's like,
Yeah.
what? That's not counseling. They are the ones that need to drive and focus in and dig in on the child's behaviors and talk about, how to focus on whatever is going on with that kiddo. So that ended up not being enough. And so at that point, I asked for what's called RAP services, which are this tier 2 level of mental health services. After the counseling, then you could go to the tier 2, which looks like many different kinds of supports and services that's structured and created to meet the needs of the individual child. So it could look like a lot of different things depending on the child's needs. And so once he started getting that, we started seeing some real progress. And I want to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to say that he was a kid that had a high IQ. Academics was not his problem. So, a lot of kiddos, are struggling with academics. And so, bad behavior happens because everything's going over their head. They don't know what's going on. They can't keep up. They don't understand the curriculum. And then they act out with bad behavior. But with your son, Nicole, that wasn't the case at all, because he was fine academically, but he still had these very negative behaviors that impeded his education. And it doesn't matter, parents, if you don't have to be this really, extremely, non-compliant child to, have them address it in the IEP. Any behavior that's impeding the child's education, they have to address that with a functional behavior assessment and a behavior intervention plan. I want to make that point for sure. So let's talk about then when he started getting RAP, Nicole, what happened then?
Okay, so in elementary school, he had an aide. We were able to get him an aide, and she was awesome. She helped redirect him. And she also, because I was nervous that it would single him out, and you promised me that's not how it works, and it wasn't. A lot of the kids thought that she was just an aide for the classroom.
Yes.
Yes, so she did a great job. And then he also went to social skills classes to help him, because he went up until the second year of middle school, he had no friends at all. And so it was pretty heartbreaking, that, there's parties and stuff like that going on, and my kid was never invited. And a lot of that, now later on in life, when people hear that and they're like, oh, that's so sad, I'm sorry that happened to you. And Noah, and I think this has a lot to do with all of the skills that he was taught. He just says, well, I was kind of a jerk, so it was my fault, And so I think that one of the main things that RAP helped him with also is the self-realization, the accountability for your actions, and how that affects your life. And so he was also given a peer mentor who was incredible. He would go to the school, a couple days a week, I think, check in with Noah. And he was somebody in his early 20s, so he was closer, to age. It wasn't like me going down there. So Noah really bonded with him. And they would go to the park, a bunch of kids, and the ones that were all part of this service. And so he felt normal, I guess. And so that was a big deal. I know that, he says that one of the things that RAP helped him with the most is that it was people to listen to him. Because he said, whenever kids know that, they're gonna find your flaw and they're gonna attach to it, and that's just what happens. Kids can be really mean. And, there's no avoiding that. It just happens. So when they know that a kid is different, and in Noah's case, it was behavior, it was a hyperactivity, it was just being unfocused, that, the aide, the peer mentor, all of that, it was just somebody that would actually talk to him. So that helped a lot. And then in high school, he had a case carrier that, really helped keep him on track with grades. And, I actually got lucky in the school district I'm in, because he was assigned some pretty great people. And so that was a definite plus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it really started taking hold with him. But the thing I like the most about RAP is that they really focus on social skills. And as you said, the social skills, focusing on that's what made him have the realization about his own behavior and why he doesn't have friends, because I'm acting like a jerk. And then he came to that realization that no wonder I don't have friends. I don't have social skills.
Yeah, and he didn't. He didn't.
No.
He would there was no space boundaries, nothing like that. And that really did, RAP helped him with that a lot. And the other thing I had mentioned to you that I feel like, I don't know if it's the right word to use, but Noah's issues are kind of like the minority in the like the IEP world, I guess. And so I think that parents, and I want to just tell parents that it is a real thing. Your kid having behavior problems is not the end of the world. You have to be, and one thing Valerie taught me is that you've got to be honest about your kid as well.
Yes.
You got to know your kid, and you've got to be honest. Like, I never went into a meeting saying my kid was an angel, because he wasn't. And you have to look at that. And I think once you look at your kid and you really see who they are and what they're capable of, then you can really help them. So, and I think that a lot of times, and it's totally understandable, because I was like that in the beginning, as parents, we get very defensive, when things like that happen, and you have to get over that, because you're not going to be able to help them like that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And saying that he's not the norm, just, commenting on that. And you're right, because there are actually like tens of thousands of kids like him, but but the problem is that they don't get served. They don't get served because they're focusing on the tens of thousands of kids that have autism and a learning disability and everything else under the sun. So unless the behavior, like I was talking about, is really serious, like they're disrupting the classroom, they're being really rude to the teacher, they're having really bad behaviors, then they have to do something about that kid. But when it's more not so serious, like Noah's was, where it was mostly he could be a little disruptive in the classroom by wanting attention and maybe acting out or calling out or saying something funny or not following directions, but it's not super serious, like what would cause them to go, okay, we got to do a behavior plan for this kid. No, but as I said before, that's where parents, you need to know the law that says a behavior that's impeding the child's education, they have to address it. There's no line that says, okay, well, this behavior over here, that it's not as bad, so we don't have to do anything about that. But when it crosses this line, then we got to do something about it. No, if the behavior is impeding the education, they got to do something about it. And his behavior, no matter how, not as big or extreme that they would consider, it was still impeding his education, because he wasn't learning, he wasn't getting good grades, he couldn't complete his work, and he was continuing to Every day that a kid acts out or has bad behavior, it just embeds more in them of that character, right? And then you got to ravel it all until they learn, oh, just like you said, the realization about social skills, that those things are taught not in school. Okay, not even in speech and language, because speech and language does cover pragmatics and social skills. However, it's not enough. It's not enough to be pulled out once a week by a speech path and work on social skills. That's not enough. Just like seeing a counselor once a week, that's not enough. Yeah. So RAP is a much more intensive service where they really focus on social skills. They're in groups with peers, and all the peers have the same issues going on, and the mentor, as you said, as well. So that's
yes.
the difference.
Yes,
that's really the difference. Let's see, I'm looking at our outline. So with that, then I think let's talk about, so Noah graduated high school with a diploma. Did he get honors?
He did. He graduated with honors.
I thought so. Yes.
Yeah, he
graduated with honors.
He did. He
really good, successful.
Yes, very good. One thing that we did do with him is I had him join a sports team.
Yes.
I didn't care what it was. I just wanted him to be part of something, like I said, because he had no friends, and he chose water polo. So he played water polo, and he remains best friends with some of those kids today. He made some really good friends. And so that was, my heart just jumped, to see that my kid was actually interacting and has friends. It was just so awesome. So yes, he does. He did graduate high school with honors. He is now he's going for a nursing program. He wants to be an RN and maybe get his nurse practitioner license. So
and that's huge. That is a hard program. It's that takes a lot of strong academic skills and studying, and those tests are difficult to pass.
They are, but I do have confidence, because like we said, it wasn't an academic issue with him. It was definitely
but he learned emotional study skills. That was
he did. Oh yeah. Yes, he did. He did. And that helped a lot. He learned that started in elementary school. Kind of teaching him those study habits, and
but he wasn't using them.
He wasn't doing it.
He might have learned them, but he wasn't doing them.
He wasn't doing them.
He knew what was right and wrong, but he was choosing the wrong. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Even in middle school, he wasn't really doing it, but I think in high school, something just changed,
services.
Because
they clicked. They started clicking with him.
They did. And I think a lot of it had to do with the peer mentoring, I think that person that was assigned to him, and just being in a group of kids that were kind of all in the same boat, really did make a difference. And so they actually ended up asking him to do peer mentoring as well, because he he's always been a very empathetic person. So he just wants to help kids, because he knows what it's like, where you feel like nothing you do is right. And he just had no self-control to just sit down and focus. And I didn't know how to help him. And
huge impulsivity issues.
Exactly. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that in one of our first IEP meetings, one of some I don't know if it was a teacher or somebody had said to me, oh, Ritalin saved my kid's life. And I was like, okay, I don't know if you're asking me to put my son on medication, which I don't think you can.
Nope.
And so Noah's dad and I, it's just not something we thought was needed. And so we did tell Valerie that, and she helped me with that. She listened to me, and she didn't make me feel like, oh, you really should be doing that. It wasn't that at all. It's like, you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Don't do it. We'll be fine.
No, this medication is absolutely up to parents. It's a parent decision, and you should not feel pressured, manipulated, threatened in any way to put your kid on meds if they have ADHD. Yes. Or any behavior issues. I mean, sometimes they'll put just a kid that doesn't have ADHD on some strong med because they have impulsivity, but they have bad behavior issues, so they put them on something to calm them down. It's like, no. I mean, if you're a parent and you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. Right. Okay. Yeah, I want all parents to know that. And in fact, they don't even have the right to talk to you about that. Okay.
I know that now.
They can ask you the question, is your child taking any meds? And if you want to, you can answer that question, but you don't have to. You can say, well, I don't think that has to do with his education. This isn't the doctor's office, and I would rather not answer that question. If you want to give them that information if your child's on meds, you may, but they cannot talk about meds because they're not doctors. Just like when this is what the school district will say to you. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, this kid has ADHD and they need an IEP, and then you take that note to the school, and guess what the school is going to say? Well, guess what? The doctor's not an educator. He's a medical practitioner. So he can't tell us to give your kid an IEP. We have to go through the educational process. So the same goes for educators telling you to put your kid on meds. They're not a doctor.
Right.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
So they're completely separate. So, but yeah, I did want us to make that amazing point that, so Noah went through RAP as, a child who needed those services, and then got so successful that he became a mentor to other children. Mm-hmm. And because he was a model, he was a peer model then. So he went from a child that was really having behavior issues to a peer model and a mentor in RAP. And I mean, if that's not a success story, I don't know what is.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I hope that just continues throughout his life. But, yes, the services that you were able to teach us about and show us made a tremendous difference. I don't know where he would be without it.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that also.
Yeah, lots of kids end up not getting a diploma because they weren't able to pass the classes to get the credits to get their diploma. And they end up getting a credential of completion, which is heartbreaking because Noah has, like I said, a high IQ, and there wouldn't be any reason why he shouldn't be able to graduate. But behavior, that's the seriousness of behavior impeding education right there. Okay. Yeah. For sure. So, and so Noah has a girlfriend now. So that
he does.
His social skills.
Yes. Yeah, no,
amazing.
He's doing really well. He's doing really well. I'm so hopeful for the future now. And I just want to tell parents that I've been there, where you feel like your kid is just bad, and in my heart, I knew he wasn't, but everybody's telling me, and he's, all of his suspensions and detentions and everything were telling me otherwise. And there's also one thing I always said to my kid, because I know that a lot of these kids struggle with friendships, a lot of them, and that's really heartbreaking as a parent, when your kid is the odd one out. And one thing that I've always told my kids, and I don't know, maybe it'll help somebody to hear it, is that you only need one. You only need one friend in this world. That's all you need. You don't have to have a million different friends. If you just have one, you're set, and that's what I always told Noah, especially, is you just need one. And so he would always say that to me, and so now that he has more than one, he's like, well, what if I have more than one now, Mom? And I'm like, great.
Once they start learning, this is how you build a relationship. This is how you make friends. This is how you have a give and take and back and forth. And then it becomes easy for them.
Yeah, it does.
The other thing I wanted to say is that, and this is very common for kids like Noah that doesn't have academic issues, has a high IQ, the go-to for a lot of staff, of course, I never want to say a blanket thing, everyone, but the typical common theme for kids like Noah is they'll say, and I know they said this a bunch of times to us and to you, Nicole, is they'll say, well, he's just choosing to do that. He knows that he's making a bad choice, and he's choosing to be bad. He's choosing to not follow the rules. He knew he wasn't supposed to do this or that, and he chose to not follow the rules. Mm-hmm. Now, and that is like my head wants to explode when they say stuff like that, because ADHD is a real disorder. Impulsivity is a real deficit. Many different kinds of behaviors like this: off-task behavior, distractibility, inability to listen and focus, all of those things, and not being impulsive and breaking the rule, even though you knew it was the rule and you knew that was the wrong thing to do, but then they do it anyway, and they're not choosing that. This comes from having ADHD. And so don't let teachers tell you that, because that's an excuse too to not give you services. Because when they say, oh, well, your child's choosing to do that, they're just bad. If they made good choices, then they don't need that service, or they don't need a functional behavior assessment. They just need to choose to be good. No. Yeah. So don't
that is true
either.
Very true.
And then the labels, which they tried to do, and they did in the beginning when he was young, he was labeled the bad kid. They thought he was choosing to be bad. And blah, blah, blah. And then it's turning that around and getting the services that the child needs to start learning good replacement behaviors and learning social skills. And so Noah's like the perfect example of a success story of a kiddo like that, who was able to go through the school system, get the IEP that he needed and the services that he needed, graduate with honors, go on to nursing school, have a girlfriend, and have a very bright future ahead of him. So
definitely.
Just amazing, Nicole. Just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything, because I would have been lost. So, if parents are watching that, you're making the good first step, if they're watching this video. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So don't give up, parents. Don't give up, because it is possible. Totally possible. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for doing this. Thank you for giving hope to other parents, and tell Noah we are very, very proud of him, and we're cheering him on. I will. Thank you so much. Okay, Nicole. All right. You take care. You too. Bye-bye.